So before India, of course, there were interludes and parts of my life that sort of intrigued me with doing winemaking from my home, Napa and Sonoma, California, where I was trained. And I did a handful of brief, exciting little projects that took me offshore. You know, I think the impetus here was the fact my dad worked for a huge company called Bechtel and did a lot of traveling as an engineer. And I remember him bringing back these beautiful chests, you know, of teak for my mom in the 60s. And you know, when you came back from the East, you know, in the 60s, it was a big thing. It's not like today where anyone can go anywhere in the world. I mean, when you traveled, it was amazing. And that stuck into my life that I want to do that from my life. So I did a project with the help again of my good neighbor across the canyon in Bulgaria. And it was a short project, and it wasn't so much winemaking. It was assessing. It's funny. It was assessing the second largest company in Bulgaria, and Bulgaria had just come out of you know, the Cold War, so it was still very Russian dominant, and you couldn't at this point you couldn't even own land. Nothing could be privatized. And so my job was they were making wine. Bulgaria is a fairly large winemaking country, but how to assess the quality and is it possible for them to raise their quality? The intent of the project I was on is, could they get an international loan from an EU banking company? And so my report in terms of assessment was important for that. So that was fun. That was a short little project. I also went to China, and this is China before the French got there. And China's now a huge winemaking company, lots of French influence. And I remember bringing wines from California. This is a funny story. Wines from California, because they had an international, or they had a national league or agency that assessed wine. I don't really remember them, but they all wore uniforms. They were these drab, and men and women, everything was equal. And I had put together, I had no idea what they wanted. I had prior put together blends of California wines that I could make, having no idea what their taste profiles were, of what might the Chinese want to drink. And I did sweet, dry white wines with floral characteristics. I did sweet white wines with floral characteristics. I did the same with reds and rosés. And I just brought cases of wines, of blends, and they weren't really varietal wines because I thought that was sort of beyond where they were. It was more taste profiles. And it was so interesting when we did this in our hotel room in Beijing. And I remember they all wore these little hats. I don't think they had the red stars on them, but I can imagine that. And we had no wine glasses. They drank out of these little shot glasses. And we had one guy, a Chinese American guy, and so he'd do the translation. And I remember the word that came out when we were tasting the red wine and that they translated to him is, we want black crystals. And I looked at my colleagues and going, the hell? I have no idea what black crystals are in wine. So I went back to work and tried to make black crystals, and there was some translation that eventually became meaningful. And I never got the job. We never got the job, but it was pretty interesting being in China. And then now China, of course, is a huge winemaking country with the help of the French, and they've spent gajillions of dollars there. So maybe my black crystals helped a little bit. I'm not sure. And then I'm also involved currently, which I'll talk about in a second, in very involved in winemaking in Israel, which is a wonderful country to make wine in. Of course, very ancient and historical. And in Costa Rica, in the mountains at 2,500 meters, which is 8,000 feet.